Hello, everyone. Welcome to the second Mountains of Madness movie Kickstarter campaign chat between myself, Aaron Vanek, and Stephen Sloan, the director and instigator and lead conspirator on the madness.
So many titles.
Yeah, it's actually a bunch of adjective descriptions instead of actual full-fledged titles, unless they were capitalized. I didn't capitalize all those.
Yeah, I'll just turn them all in eventually, like tickets at a Chuck E. Cheese for one big title.
Yes,
eventually.
exactly. Yeah. That'll be your big thing. So, for this, the second one, let's talk about sort of your vision. You mentioned earlier that you were going to take a lot of inspiration for the backgrounds and stuff from Nicholas Roerich, who I'm sure I am mispronouncing the name, but the Russian artist who was mentioned 7 times in the original story by Lovecraft.
Possibly by name more than some of the main characters in the book.
Yeah, absolutely. So apparently he really wanted to plug Nicholas. So tell me what you know about Nicholas and you know what you've seen in his artwork that you want to bring to this animated feature.
Oh man, well, first of all, I guess I should preface this by saying that I am by no means a scholar of Rourke or anything like that. Mostly it was just like, yeah, it was inescapable. You know, when I decided to do the film, I went back and more closely reread the story, and I'm sure I glossed over the first couple of times I read it. This like he would say it was like this image from this artist's painting. I'm like, well, that's nice, but whatever, move on. I've got an idea what you're talking about. But this time, I'm like, oh, who's this artist he keeps mentioning? Because yeah, you can't get past the fact that he mentions it like 7 times or something. And so I look it up and I'm like, oh, well, heck, there they are. Like, there are the Mountains of Madness. Like, there are all the visuals I could possibly, hope for getting to inspire this film, or the look for this film, or some of the locations anyway. Now, Rourke is painting the Himalayas. I don't know if it was exclusively, but like the majority of his stuff was done, or his mountainscapes anyway, were all the Himalayas. But that does not, it's not hard to transpose that into the Antarctic by any means. And he did a lot of work on like Tibetan temples and ruins and things like that as well, which are literally clinging to the mountaintops. The same way that Lovecraft describes, the plateau or the approach to the plateau. So I'm like, you know what? Why reinvent the wheel? I can literally step back in time and see the author's intent by looking at these Rourke paintings. So let's do what we can to kind of stick to that. Not rip them off by any means, but like definitely his palettes are off the wall. Like he's not kidding around with these palettes. They're very, the contrast is amazing, and the colors he chose, they're incredibly vibrant, but they still give off this very spooky, kind of eerie, isolated feel, which is ideal, I think, for what we want. So when I'm talking to the artists so far, the art we have done, I mean, hopefully you can tell if you look at the color palettes we're choosing for some of those initial layouts, they are drawn as closely as possible from the Rourke paintings.
Yeah, I mean, I'm looking at them right now. I'll post some links when we put this up to a great slideshow. I'm looking at the roerich.org site, so ROERICH.org. Anybody
there's no lack of examples there. It's ridiculous. It's like 150 high resolution. I don't know if they're photographs or scans of his paintings, but they're gorgeous, and they get across the just how bright and vibrant these paintings are extremely well.
Yeah, what's real interesting to me is that kind of, as you were saying, the color palette is very striking, but it's very bright. It's daytime type photos. There are shadows in a lot of them, but it's very light blue and white and things like that, which I think some people might think is too happy. I don't know what it would say for something that's Lovecraft, but what do you think Lovecraft saw in these paintings that so influenced him?
I obviously can't get into the man's head, but like the ones that affect me the most, and I'm looking at an example right now, is he does this amazing thing where the mountains seem almost like an illusion on the horizon, it's very hard to tell where like the ground plane ends and the mountains begin. They just kind of bleed into one another, and so it gives this kind of aspect of like the mountains floating almost. You know, there's no real sense of where the ground ends and the mountains begin, and right away that snaps me into like Dyer's point of view, or Lake when he was sending back the radio messages that like, oh, there's a mountain range off in the distance. We can't really tell how far it goes because it just doesn't stop. You know, like the sense of scale there is the same sort of sense that I get from the book.
Yeah, it's almost. I'm just sort of reminded of, you know, Lovecraft's description of Relay. You know, Cthulhu's island home with a non-Euclidean geometry, stuff like that. That it's so, you know, off-putting to our perception that we can't see the scale. You know what I mean? They're trying to judge scale, and everything is just so oppressive. And I think that all hints at Lovecraft's suggestion that, you know, we, mankind, are barely able to understand all the things that are going on in the universe. We can't even properly perceive things the right way.
Yeah, like I would say it's safe to say that a running theme in his work is scale, in that, you know, mankind's perception of its scale in the universe as opposed to its actual scale in the universe.
Yeah, absolutely. So leading into that, what other artists or even other movies or music or anything that's influencing you in your vision of this? You mentioned another artist, Alex Toth. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, I'm sure I'll catch flack. I don't know if it's Toth or Toth. I've heard people that are fans of his pronounce both ways, but yeah, sort of a, I don't know if he's unsung, because anybody who's in the business of comics or even has like a cursory knowledge of like animation history is sort of knowledgeable about Alex Toth. So he's he worked sort of in the golden age of comics. Like that's where he got his start, and he worked right on through into his death in 2007, and he was literally found dead at his drawing board. So like he didn't stop working until the day he died, you know, and even on the day he died, he was still going. So he's a pretty hardcore dude, but he really helped to kind of shape the look of comics in the 50s and 60s. He was definitely sort of on that bleeding edge of that style, and he was sort of instrumental in bringing the comic book look of things into the world of animation, because he was in the right place at the right time when Hanna-Barbera was starting to get into expand. They'd broken so much ground with primetime animation with the Flintstones and stuff. And they developed this limited animation style, which allowed them to make animation much more cheaply, and it could get onto televisions and other movie theaters. He was there to bring the next step forward, which was their adventure series. So he worked with Doug Wildley, to help create the look of Johnny Quest, and where Hanna-Barbera, kind of developed the limited animation techniques. He was really, really heavy into doing, because he was a comic artist, storytelling up front with storyboards, to make sure that no matter how bad the animators screw up, they're not going to be able to, screw up telling this story. So I'm a fan of his work because he comes from the school of like the art of simplicity, essentially. The most economy you can get for your line, the better. And he eventually evolves into mostly working exclusively with darkness and light, and almost abandoning line work and contour work altogether. So he's just working in line and in light and shadow. So I'm a fan of his artwork, but I'm also a fan of his process, and especially his animation process, because I'm an animator. And the way he looked at things and sort of reinvigorated the animation process to handle these adventure cartoons, which honestly couldn't have been done in the more traditional, like Flintstones, Secret Squirrel, kind of way of doing things. So I appreciate him as an artist, but I also sort of look to him as inspiration for how to produce animation nowadays as well.
Yeah. So both these guys are going to be great influences on the Mountains of Madness movie, which we're hoping gets made and successful. And so if you want to support this, please check out our Kickstarter campaign. Look for Mountains of Madness on Kickstarter. We also have a Facebook group, and there's a web page, mountainsmadnessmovie.com, I believe is the URL. Is that right?
Yes.
So check us out. We're going to be talking more. We're going to do more of these updates, Stephen and I, and hopefully we can get some other people talking about the movie and influences and what we want to do. So please help us make this happen. So let's get an animated feature that's influenced by Nicholas Roerich, who Lovecraft mentioned 7 times in the story, and the great Alex Toth or Toth. And again, apologies if I'm mispronouncing the names.
Anybody's name, yeah.
On both of them. I should have looked up real quick. How do you pronounce those names before you get them? But those are kind of the influences that we're going to have. So please check us out again on the Kickstarter Mountains Madness movie, and tune in again. We'll do some more of these, Stephen, you and I, and talk more about Lovecraft and the monsters and the creatures and the characters and the story and things like that. And next time I'll set up. I just realized I didn't set up Q&A. I have to do it beforehand. As I set this broadcast up, we can do Q&A, but I have to do it ahead of time. I can't just click it on. So next time I'll try and get some Q&A. So if you have any questions for Stephen or anyone else associated with the movie, go ahead and make a comment on the Kickstarter page or in our Facebook group, and we'll definitely get in touch with you and we'll respond as best we can. We want to start a dialogue with all you fans. So please get in touch with us if you got any questions or comments or anything. And next time, hopefully, you'll be able to do Q&A on the chat. So thank you very much, Stephen, for talking to me again.
Thank you, Aaron. We should definitely turn the tables at some point because people are going to get sick of me. Because you are, like I said, I'm not a Rourke scholar, and I'm a fan of Lovecraft, but I'm definitely not a Lovecraft scholar, and I think you definitely fall more into that field. So I'd like to kind of pick your brain on some items there.
I'm scared. My brain is my brain is actually in a jar container, hooked up by some in a MeGo container. So don't pick at it. I'll give you a spoon. But yeah, we'll talk more about this hopefully in a couple days. So stay tuned to everything, and please spread the word about the Mountains Madness movie. Thank you very much, and hopefully we'll be hearing from you, and you'll be hearing from us soon. Goodbye.
Bye.